Hello, 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 and welcome to our nursing news you can use at 5. I'm Tina Baxter, and I'm your host. I want to thank you for your patience today. We're a little bit late getting started because we just had a wonderful conversation with Giovanna Navano, who is a nurse entrepreneur, and she'll be coming up on a future segment of the Nurse Shark Academy show. So I'm very excited about that and talking with her and her work as a nurse health coach. So that'd be great. All right, so let's get started with our affirmations for today. Our first affirmation: you can scream, you can cry, but never give up. You can scream, you can cry, but never give up. Be strong now because things will get better. It might be stormy now, but it can't rain forever. Be strong now because things will get better. It might be stormy now, but it can't rain forever. And lastly, people give up because they think about how far they have to go instead of how far they've gotten. People give up because they think about how far they have to go instead of how far they've gotten. So, those are our affirmations for today. Very excited for all that we have coming up today. And so, let's get into a little bit into our news segment, but I want to kind of quickly head into an announcement. I'm very excited about this, and I will be posting these comments shortly. You may have seen it on our Facebook page that we are in a summit, and I'm excited to be a part of this. It's our first time being a part of this summit, and I get to do a keynote speaker on It's All in There. You have everything you need to succeed in life, and that is so very true. So posting information that's for the comeback champion. So I will post that in the show notes once I get done with this so that you can see that. But I'm so glad to be able to share that information with you. And so I'm looking forward to sharing that. Let me see if I can find that real quick. I might even be able to pop it in here now. And let's see here. Yes. Here's the link. Let me see if I can get it in here in a comment. Paste. And it's no cost for you to become to join this. So today is your time to get started, and you can be a comeback champion as well for 2023. I'm excited about that, and so I'm going to send that link on out. All right, so let's go ahead and get started on our topic. Okay. All right, so let's get on with the news. So this news story is coming out of Mahoning Matters. I brought it out because I found this quite interesting. This happens to be a nursing home in Ohio, and I just wanted to share this so that we can discuss this. So it says record $26 million jury verdict secured in Warren nursing home wrongful death case. And it says a verdict was reached May 26 in the wrongful death civil case of Stephen Tate, a 69-year-old Trumbull County resident. Edie Hall trial lawyers represented the Tate estate in the case against Signature Healthcare of Warren, who were represented by our attorneys Paul McCartney and Jane Warner of Benezzi, Schweitzer, Polito, and Hupp. After hearing all the evidence, the jury returned with the largest verdict against a nursing home in Ohio history, according to Michael Hill. Hill has been rated one of the top 10 nursing home abuse and neglect lawyers in the country. There's a $20 million verdict for wrongful death, as well as $500,000 for Ohio residents' rights law violation and $500,000 for pain and suffering. The verdict also added $5 million in punitive damages, a grand total of $26 million for the wrongful death case being awarded to the family. So I want to know what happened. And so I was looking at this. It says Tate was permanently injured when he was shot in the head at the age of 19, leaving him blind. In November of 2019, Tate needed 24/7 assistance from caregivers. Like many patients with traumatic brain injuries, needed someone to sit with him and supervise his eating to make sure he took small bites and chewed well. The family said he had poor impulse control and would scarf his food if not assisted with eating. Due to systemic understaffing and mismanagement, Signature Healthcare of Warren was not supervising Tate when he was eating alone in his room like they were supposed to. On November 25th, 2019, while he was alone, Tate aspirated during lunch, which means food accidentally lodged in his airway, causing him to struggle to breathe and gag. According to the investigation into the incident, the nursing home staff, despite finding him in distress and sick, waited 42 minutes to request an ambulance, during which Tate reportedly drowned in his own vomit. Hill said that despite valiant efforts by medical staff at the hospital, he died from septic shock with multi-organ failure. So, wow. So here's another story, and this is came from allnurses.com. And this is what I found was interesting. And I want us to kind of discuss these cases because I was just on talking on a call with a nurse, and we were talking about burnout in the nursing profession and things like that. And so this is what piqued my interest. And so allnurses.com reports that alarm fatigue allegedly led to woman's death, and a lawsuit has been filed. This is out of Pennsylvania. A lawsuit against Lehigh Valley Hospital, Pocono, alleges that the hospital failed to treat pneumonia adequately and that nurses did not respond to alarms when she went into cardiac arrest. Dispenza was found unresponsive following a cardiac episode and remained in a coma until her family removed her from life support. The lawsuit seeks damages on behalf of Dispenza's widower, John Dispenza. So Lena Dispenza, a 71-year-old woman from Chestnut Hill Township, Monroe County, was admitted to the hospital in November with shortness of breath. She received oxygen and inhalation therapy treatments as part of her care. However, the morning after, she was found unresponsive on the hospital floor following a cardiac episode. Despite efforts to revive her, Dispenza remained in a coma. Her family made the heartbreaking decision to remove her from life support on December 3rd, leading to her death. Dispenza, born in Italy, leaves behind a grieving family, including her widower, John Dispenza, children and grandchildren. The lawsuit filed on May 18th on behalf of the Dispenza family points to a phenomenon known as, quote, alarm fatigue, contributing to her death, as the National Library of Medicine defines alarm fatigue as a situation where clinicians experience high exposure to medical devices, alarms causing alarms desensitization, there we go, and leading to missed alarms or delayed response. The lawsuit alleges this condition led to the hospital staff's failure to respond promptly to Dispenza's critical condition. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, there's a lawsuit. We don't have we don't have all the information yet, but we'll see what happens. But this is what this is why I brought this up, because the article goes on to talk about the importance of effective alarm management and response in healthcare settings. And there are potential risks associated with our alarm desensitization, and the critical role of healthcare professionals in monitoring and responding to patient alarms. I would also like to recognize that there's immense pressure and workload that the nurses and other healthcare professionals face daily. They often face tasks with managing multiple patients, each with their own set of alarms and monitors. So again, there can be a lot of confusion in the hospital. You're taking care of multiple patients, multiple alarms, multiple things going on. And so I want to talk about this. So nurses and other healthcare professionals, what do you take on this case? And would you think that alarm fatigue had something to do with it? Let me know what your opinion is and about this case, because I'm curious. And again, it's still being litigated. We don't have all the information. We don't know who's going to win and who's at fault. And I certainly haven't read all the documents or anything, so I'm not rendering any type of legal or medical opinion on standard of care. I'm talking about this for general discussion. So please let me know, other nurses, what do you think about this? So let's just go on because just wanted to talk about some things. This is a case I thought this was kind of disturbing. Remember last week we talked about, and I commented on something on social media about following the money with nursing homes. Well, here comes the problem when someone who's in a position of authority abuses that. And so this is a story about a nursing home administrator who was sentenced for theft out of another county in Iowa, in Osage, Iowa. This is reported by the KIMT.com news. I'm curious because the reason why I brought this story up is because I'm looking at it and I'm just thinking, here we have nurses that make medication errors and they want to prosecute them criminally. And I am certainly not saying that this person should be prosecuted criminally in any way. I'm just saying that when you look at the face of this, she, to me, is very lucky. And if she's a nursing home administrator, I hope that they pulled her administration license so she's not in that position again for a very long time. So it says the former administrator of the Stacyville Community Nursing Home has been sentenced for embezzling thousands of dollars. Lisa Lee Klimish, 39, of Cresco, pleaded guilty to second-degree theft. As part of a plea deal, she was ordered to spend 1 year in supervised probation and pay a civil penalty of $1,000 and $1,025. Now, this is where I'm like, wait a minute. She took thousands, and she basically gets this slap on the wrist with a plea deal. I don't know. Something about it just doesn't sit right with me. So Klimish was accused of stealing money while employed at the nursing home between May and July of 2022. Court documents state she used the nursing home's checking account and debit and credit cards to spend $13,248.95 on her own utility bill, vehicle insurance, attorney fees, jewelry, clothing, and pet supplies. Klimish received a deferred judgment, meaning this conviction will be wiped from her record if she successfully completes her sentence. And so that makes me like, wait a minute. Now, it'd be something that maybe, she stole $500, $1,000, etc. But she sold $13,000. And basically they said, okay, keep your nose clean for a while and we'll make it all go away as if it never happened. And you only have to come up with like $1,000 to pay. I just don't know. No, because here's my point in this. First of all, you're stealing money from a facility that should have gone to taking care of the residents. So to me, you're stealing from the residents. In my mind, you're stealing from the residents. It may be different. I don't know what the legal laws are there in Iowa, but I'm just saying. And then it just seems like a slap on the wrist because who's to say that she's not after a year going to go back and go work at some other nursing home and do the same thing? I don't know this woman. I'm not out against her, but I just find that this was just, I just feel like she just got a pass and where other people do not. And there's some sort of, I don't know. But yeah. So that one just kind of made me pause and like, yeah. All right, so let's get on because I want to get on to this one. This is coming from Yahoo News. And it says, woman denied bond after being accused of masquerading as a nurse in 8 states. Now, we had talked about a nurse here in Indiana that, a person who was alleging to be a nurse who stole an LPN's license and was working as a nurse. But this is coming, this other lady stole another nurse's information. So here it goes. All right. So a woman has been accused of working as a nurse in 8 different states. This is not just one state. 8 different states without a license will remain in Cobbs County Jail. Channel 2 Cobb County Bureau Chief Michelle Newell was in the courtroom on Tuesday afternoon when a judge denied bail for Carissa Laws. She also has an active warrant for her arrest in Vermont and has pending charges in Orlando, Florida. Law's defense attorney argued that she should have been granted bond because she's only facing one felony charge. She's charged with one felony, practicing without a license in Georgia's is a misdemeanor, which must have a bond. The one felony, aggravated identity, alleges she committed this one time. She was employed as a licensed nurse with Walton Community Services, where she was tasked with working with 8 people in a Cobb County home who needed care around the clock from a licensed nurse. According to the state prosecutor, I can't think of anything more dangerous than someone masquerading as a nurse from state to state to state. And that's the issue. They're saying let her out on bond, but I'm like, this is a woman that's done this in multiple states. So, yeah. The prosecutor added that she admitted to practicing as a nurse in Maryland, Virginia, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, Florida, and New Mexico, in addition to working in Georgia. Law's attorney says the real focus should be on his client's employer. So he's alleging that the employer didn't check properly. Again, this is fraud, and not just in one state, but in multiple states. So what do you think about this? Let me know. All right. Here's an interesting article. As we've been talking about the nursing shortage and people feeling the pinch of working, et cetera, et cetera. This is out of Toledo, Ohio. This is about ProMedica, and I found this quite interesting. And it says nearly 200 lose jobs in ProMedica skilled nursing memory care closures. This is from WTVG. ProMedica informed state and local officials last week that the closure of its skilled nursing and rehabilitation Sylvania Center and Gerlich Memory Care Center in Sylvania will result in the laying off of 190 employees. And the letter dated May 31st, ProMedica said it believed many employees would find positions within the company, but added that the layoffs are expected to be permanent and will begin at the end of July. None of the impacted employees are represented by a union. ProMedica divested from a skilled nursing agreement with Welltower back in November of 2022, resulting in 262 layoffs, most of them remote workers. So we're going to keep an eye on this, as you know, obviously Toledo's my hometown, but I also want to know what's happening because as you start to see these more closures of these skilled nursing facilities, where are these people going to go? All right. Here's another great article that I happened upon. This is from Med City News. And it says it's time for nursing to return to its roots. It says many physicians, podiatrists, psychologists, and occupational and physical therapists are able to take advantage of the ability to be an independent contractor with little scrutiny. Those who oppose it when it comes to nursing fail to see nurses as anything but a tax classification. They don't understand that trying to corral nurses back into a system of work that does not work for them will only intensify the nursing shortage by exacerbating the flight from the workforce. So let's go on with the story. It says, for most nurses, the decision to become a nurse is almost always driven by something intimate, a loved one lost to sickness or tragedy, a family tradition, a desire to heal their community. Nobody becomes a nurse to work grueling marathon shifts. Yet the 12-hour 3-on, 4-off schedule is standard for the profession, and for many, it is the only avenue to realizing their personal passion. It is viable for some nurses, but for others, like me, it is a rapid route to burnout. The current nursing shortage is a crisis, and it is being fueled by the confinement of healthcare professionals to the supremely rigid structure of work. According to recent studies, as many as 67% of nurses are planning to leave the field within the next 3 years. They're citing burnout, stress, and a desire to reduce the number of hours they're working as reasons for leaving the industry. The author goes on to say that she understands these reasons on a deeply personal level, or he does. 10 years ago, they were trying to work. It said the following spring, this nurse left their full-time nursing job and found contract work as a critical care transport nurse with an ambulance company in San Diego. Goes on to say, my expectation was to work a few shifts, put my education to use, and pay the bills while I contemplated my next career move. My first shift thrust me into a new world as we raced through the city at 4 a.m. to get a man who was having a heart attack. Once the rush of stabilizing the patient had dwindled, I found myself overcome with joy. I had helped save patients in the ICU before. This was different. For the first time in a long time, I actually loved my work because I was working on my own terms, picking up shifts that worked best for me and my family's schedules without the obligations that accompany a full-time job. Nurses are currently staging a great exodus from the profession, and the only way they'll re enter is on their own terms. Nurses and other healthcare professionals want more control over when, where, and how many hours they work. Many still love their full time roles, and they are absolutely critical to the prosperity of healthcare's workforce. But there are others who don't want the traditional constraints of minimum shift requirements, nor do they want to be forced overtime or holidays. They want a level of autonomy and flexibility in their schedules that can't be found working full time or with a staffing agency. Over 100 years ago, however, that kind of flexibility was inherent to the profession. This is quite interesting, and this is another discussion piece, so let's talk about it. I kind of like this article. It says in the first few decades of the 20th century, most nurses worked as independent contractors, relying on their own resourcefulness to seek out work. Studies of the nurse labor market during this period show private duty nurses made approximately 80% of practicing nurses. Many belonged to registries that afforded them the flexibility, autonomy, and control many nurses seek today. And what happened? As healthcare transformed over the past century, these registries were replaced with staffing conglomerates we know today. By the 1990s, big staffing business dominated the healthcare labor's market, and in recent years, they've been exploiting it by charging 3 times the hourly rate of staff nurses and retaining as much as 40% of that amount for themselves. As the nursing shortage intensifies, many facilities feel all they can do is attempt to hire their way out. Attracted by large bonuses and upfront payments, nurses are leaving their local positions to become travel nurses as agencies. Those who left their full time positions for staffing agencies during the pandemic are now beginning to realize that the structure of working as a travel nurse is no different than working full time and is often more restrictive. It is abundantly clear that something needs to change. The system no longer works for either nurses or facilities needing temporary staff. Healthcare facilities need workforce models that are dynamic, local, flexible, and that ultimately allow them to reduce labor costs. Nurses want a system of work that respects their autonomy and desire to have a life outside of the hospital. The private duty registry model of the early 20th century provides an early and critical historical illustration of the realization of nurse power, entrepreneurship, and control over professional practice that we still learn from today. Many physicians, podiatrists, psychologists, and occupational and physical therapists are able to take advantage of the ability to be an independent contractor with little scrutiny. Historically, nurses have been entitled to do the same opportunities of flexibility and independent contracting. When patient demand is high, facilities are able to tap local independent contractors to staff up quickly. Offering a means of work outside the constraints of the current structure opens up access to a bevy of nurses who have left the field, nurses who are qualified, passionate about caregiving, and ready to work. So, this is from Will Patterson, who wrote this, who is the CEO of CareRev. And I found this quite interesting because as he brought this up, and I've talked about this before, nurses had a level of autonomy that have been chipped away and chipped away and chipped away by big medicine. Nurses used to prescribe treatments because they were the ones at the bedside. They used to give medication because that's what they did. And so, what we've done is we've created these healthcare silos and we've carved out these niches that says it's only for this certain group or only for that certain group, not realizing that I think nursing is the one profession that kind of overlaps and taps onto multiple groups because often we're the ones that are at the bedside. We're the ones who, when there's no physical therapist, we are your physical therapist. If there's no occupational therapist, we are the occupational therapist, and et cetera. And so, again, I think that we need to look back historically at how nursing has functioned, and maybe we can restore some of that back to nurses. All right. So this is a story. Let me go to this one first. Excuse me. Um, no, we'll go to this one. Okay, so this story says not enough nurses. Data shows why nurses are leaving the profession. This is from ABC 15 Arizona. I find this interesting because as we've been talking about the shortages and everything, there's been a lot more if you're looking at different places around the country. So it says the data comes as Scholaroo ranks Arizona seventh in the country when it comes to states with the highest nursing shortage. Burnout from the COVID-19 pandemic is partly to blame, but the president of the Arizona Nurses Association, Heidi Sanborn, says that there are a number of other reasons, including pay, stress, and work life balance, which we just talked about and proved in the last article. And it says, Sanborn says, the feeling I get from all of the nurses I speak with, regardless of the setting, is that staffing continues to be a crisis. I think that there's this myth that you only work 3 days a week, so it's somehow a lighter schedule. But the reality is it's incredibly physically and psychologically demanding. Nurses also have experienced a rise in violence at the bedside. This ranges from the patients to the public and family members who are being aggressive and assertive toward nurses to the point where nurses don't feel safe leaving their shift and walking to their car at the end of the night. In return, Sanborn says patients could feel the impact. She says longer wait times and inability if you're going to be admitted and get a bed in a hospital room because there's not a nurse there to staff it, and delays in care and are significant concerns regarding the workforce shortages here in Arizona. We've got to do more to keep nurses at the bedside, giving them the support they need to be able to deliver care safely. So it says recently, 5 Arizona universities received grant funding to pay tuition for 900 nursing students. Students enter the program are required to work in Arizona for 4 years after graduation. So again, this is something that's across the country and across the pond. So this is coming from the UK, and I found this interesting. This was the BBC News, and it says nursing strikes because patients are dying. All right. Cardiff-based Catherine Davies is on the picket line and said there are simply not enough staff. Nurses across nearly all parts of Wales will strike for 12 hours on Tuesday and Wednesday and an ongoing dispute over pay. The industrial action means thousands of planned care appointments will be impacted. The Royal College of Nursing Wales chief Helen Wiley said members needed more commitments from the Welsh government. She added that the ballot for further action would reopen in July. The Welsh government said that it was disappointed that strike action was continuing. The lack of staff make it difficult to spot when patients deteriorate, which can be a matter of life and death in cases like sepsis, Mrs. Davis says. So again, I want to stop here because we have this story. Let's go back to the original story, the first story that we had about this person choking, dying in Ohio. We had another story about, again, lack of staffing might have been an issue. When are we going to wake up and realize that this is an ongoing real problem in healthcare across the board, and we need to do something and do something quickly? Ms. Davies, who works at the University Hospital of Wales in Cardiff, said, "We just don't have enough staff." Ms. Davies, who had been a nurse for 32 years, said the pressures have meant she has neglected her patients. 5, 10 years ago was different. Now we have to choose who is the least ill. The least ill person might just want someone to sit with them at the start of the day to talk through their diagnosis, their treatment, but we can't do that. It wasn't perfect in the past, but we could wash patients, do something, and put moisturizer in someone's face or legs. We can't do that anymore. We're lucky if we can wash their faces. People are picketing across Wales, including at Brongalas Hospital in Aberystwyth, Ceredigion. Hope I said that right. Aneurin Bevan Health Board in Southeast Wales is the only one not to be affected by the strikes. And can I say this? I just anecdotally, I just heard from someone today that their child was in a children's hospital right here in Indiana, and that child, an infant, hadn't been changed. Not an infant, but a toddler hadn't been changed while they're in the hospital. Family had to do it because nobody would give that child a bath. Yeah, short staffing might have had a part in it. I'm not saying it did. I don't know. But you're hearing stories like this out in the public. So it's creeped out, not just behind the hospital walls now, inside the hospital walls. It's out in the public, and the public is starting to take notice. It says that the strike is due to take place between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. on both days, though there are exemptions where certain units will be staffed. These include critical care units, dialysis and chemotherapy services, life-threatening cancer treatments, neonatal and pediatric intensive care units, and standalone pediatric emergency departments. Night duty levels of staffing will also be in place for A&E, which is the emergency room for those of us in the United States, 24-hour inpatient areas, and community services. It means elective and routine procedures involving Royal College of Nursing members, such as operations and outpatient appointments, will not take place. The RNC in Wales has more than 17,000 members, but it is not clear how many will withdraw labor during the strike. So again, we'll be keeping an eye on what's happening in nursing, not just here in the U.S., but also across the world. All right, so that is it for our news segment. I want to thank you for tuning in for our news. So latest announcement, our new blog post came out today. I'm very excited about that. Join us for our latest blog post, and it is the power of mission. What do you have as your mission statement? How are you living out that mission? So look at our our newest blog post on the Nurse Shark Academy .biz page. You can also find our latest podcast episode for the Nurse Shark Academy show on that page as well. Or if you're on YouTube, you can just hop on over to our YouTube channel and look at it there. And so you'll find our latest podcast episode. And then don't forget the Comeback Summit. I'm excited about that. Posted that information right here, and it should be going to our YouTube channel as well. You've seen it on our Facebook page. So I wanted you to know that that's coming up for our Comeback Summit at the end of June. Join us for that. It's free. And in fact, you can get your ticket and then invite a couple other people to come. I'm very excited to be on that. It'll be shown on, I believe it's YouTube, Apple TV, Roku, and other places. So you'll get a chance to see that. All right, that's the end of our segment. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week for nursing news you can use at 5. Bye-bye for now.